'Tis the season to shine with H&M. Discover the holiday collection and find fashionable pieces for your wardrobe or for under the tree. Get inspired and dazzle with this year's glam. From tuxedo styles, bow detailed pieces, impressive prints, and more. From unforgettable looks to unforgettable gifts. With fashion finds to home decor, find it all at H&M. Treat your loved ones and yourself this season. Shop in-store or at hm.com.
The first person I told, obviously, that I was getting help was my husband. And that was great because he was just happy about it, because he was the one that had to see me, you know, really hungover and feeling anxiety. And he was just really, really supportive. And from that moment on, I actually didn't tell anybody for 18 months. I was very, very nervous about telling anybody that the fact that I'd given up drinking, because I think the word sobriety can often, you know, it relates to the word alcoholic, and admitting to having a problem means I was going to feel very, very judged. So actually, I kept it a secret. I kept my therapy a secret from everybody apart from my husband until I was comfortable to tell everybody. I think the other problem was as well for me, why I was so scared of telling everybody, was that I just felt that I didn't want to let anybody down. I'd told people I was giving up drinking before, and I'd tried moderation and everything and failed. And this time I didn't want to fail, and I didn't want to make this big, you know, announcement and then not do as well as I'd hoped. So actually I did tell people after 18 months, and that was one of the hardest things I ever had to do in my sobriety.
Can I just interrupt and say 18 months is a really, really long time. Yeah. A year and a half of not telling anybody other than your husband is massive.
It was massive. And also I did socialise during that period. And sometimes I sat with a beer, which I know sounds ridiculous, but I just wasn't ready. I sat and I held a beer. I didn't sip on it. I just held on to it because I just couldn't be bothered with the questions. For me, my sobriety journey was so personal. It was just about me, my husband and my children. And I just didn't feel confident to tell anybody about it. But I knew the time would come, and eventually, I mean, I didn't know there was a community out there. I think the problem was actually, Lucy, thinking about it now, was that I didn't realise there were people like me. I thought that I was a little bit of a binge drinker that perhaps needed help to slow down. I didn't realise that I fitted somewhere on that alcohol spectrum at that point. So I didn't feel it necessary to tell anybody then. And I didn't want people to think that I was passed out in a gutter with a newborn baby crawling over me. I just didn't want people to make the wrong assumptions of me. So, yeah, eventually it came to the point where people started to notice. I mean, I had a baby in that time, I think.
Yes, I was going to say, were you pregnant for some of that? Because that would have helped.
Definitely helped, and breastfeeding. I mean, I had all the excuses at hand, even when I didn't have children. I was like, I'm driving, I'm on antibiotics. I had all those excuses at hand, but I never had to use them because I actually stayed home quite a lot. But when I did go out, I just held a beer and pretended that I was still drinking, which isn't the right thing to do. But it worked for me at the time because I wasn't ready to tell anybody. But eventually, as I grew more confident in my sobriety, I plucked up the courage to tell friends and family. And that isn't an easy thing to do. But the response that I got, rather than feeling judged, was just that everybody was pleased. Because, I think they're probably a bit fed up of me being wasted at every family social event in the last 25 years. So I think a lot of them were quite relieved, and everybody was very supportive. It was a massive shock to me that people loved me for me rather than for me being a pisshead.
Yeah, yes, so much. I agree totally with that. You don't think people are going to like you anymore.
Well, no, exactly. And that is ridiculous, because if people don't like you, that's their own issue. And you don't want mates like that anyway, do you? You don't want mates that are going to judge you. I know that people find it hard because you're not going to be the same person that you used to be. You're not going to be at the 7-Eleven buying crisps at 2:00 in the morning. You're not going to be that same person that they want to hang out with. So that is hard for people. But to be honest, they'll get over it. Yeah. And you're doing what's right for you. So you just have to go with it, and you have to keep going out and keep seeing people, and you have to tell people.
Mm-hmm, yeah. Look, for me, it was really quite different. And I think that's probably because of our own personal situation. So you're in a marriage with 3 young kids, and I'm single with 2 teenage daughters, one of whom I have full time and the other one I have week on, week off. So I spend a lot more time on my own. So when it came to giving up, I needed to be accountable to people. Because my drinking habit had become very much sitting at home on my own and drinking, and it was so easy to fall back into that.
Yeah, and that's why I suppose you get away with it for a long time, is because there's no one there to see what state you're in or to judge you, I guess.
Totally, yeah. I mean, it was, you're just sitting there drinking and you're judging yourself for it, but nobody else is there looking in, and it's quite a sinister way of drinking almost. So when I came to giving up, I was quite different to you, Vic. I did announce it to the world, and I was a lot more open about it, and I just felt that I had to be, because I needed to say to people, I'm giving up drinking, and I didn't want to fail in anyone's eyes.
Yeah.
And really, people were suspiciously supportive.
Oh yeah.
You say,
smiling in your face, and then gibbering to their mate in a corner like, this is never ever going to last.
Either saying that or saying to their mate, oh, it's about bloody time. Yeah. Perhaps we can take her out for dinner one night without her making a total tit of us all.
Yeah, because I suppose it gets to a point with drinking where sometimes you become a liability. I mean, I always did. I always had people looking after me, throwing me in taxis and holding my ponytail while I vomited in the toilet. You can ruin other people's nights out as well.
Oh, I was totally doing that. And I think that the fact that so many people are supportive, it almost makes me go red even thinking about it. Yeah. Just cringe with embarrassment. The fact that even the heavy drinker friends I have are thinking, God, thank God she's stopped. But the plus side of that is that they were all super supportive. And again, so surprised. Yeah. Like I would put it that I was amazed that people actually liked me sober.
Yeah.
And I still am amazed that people want to catch up with me when they know I'm not going to have a drink. I still can't get over the fact that people like me.
I think that's one of the most interesting things you've come up with there, really, because the whole fear for some people is that giving up drinking is going to make you not loved by your friends and family anymore, or not. They're going to think you're not fun anymore. But what we're both saying here is, in both our experiences, is that it's actually the opposite.
Totally.
People are really embrace your sobriety. And for me, I find people find it intriguing. They want to know, so you've given up drinking. And actually, so many people are questioning their drinking that actually they want to know what you did rather than to judge you, which is it's a lovely surprise.
It is. It's a really lovely surprise. And I have to say, there's not one friend who hasn't been there and supported me through this, not one, which I'm just amazed at. I never would have believed it.
And to say that, it's actually, of course, if someone isn't supportive of you, I mean, saying that you've got, you're giving up drinking, it means you had a drink problem, really.
Exactly right.
People don't just give up drinking because they just don't like it anymore. Generally, you're giving up for a reason. And I think people generally nowadays respect your reasons why, rather than judging them, which is fantastic.
And I agree with you, Vic, when you say that when you tell people that you're giving up drinking, you're also having to admit, if people were to read in between the lines, which is really easy, that you've got a problem. And that is why it's so hard to do it, because you're saying to people, I've got a problem with alcohol. And it's a bit embarrassing because a lot of people don't. And it's like, why couldn't I handle it? What's wrong with me? Am I weak? Am I greedy? What is it? Why have I got this problem?
I'm weak and greedy.
Yeah. I will admit that I'm weak and greedy. Where's the chocolate? Can you pass the chocolate? No, but that is one of the things, isn't it? Having to explain that you're not drinking means that you're saying, I've got a problem. And that's what all the heaviness around it is. And I would just like to mention before we move on, my dad, because my dad is one of my best friends in all the world. And although I've lived in Australia for 12 years, he's in the UK and I speak to him every 48 hours on Skype religiously. And we talk for somewhere between half an hour to an hour each time. We get on really well. And he's 86. But he didn't realise how bad my drinking was. And I chose to tell him that I was giving up. And that was a really upsetting thing for him. He was really distraught. He just said, I just didn't know. I didn't know it was that bad. But telling him was a huge part of me sticking to it.
Yeah.
And now he'll say to me, because he's in the UK where it's really miserable. They've just come out of lockdown. He can't really go out. He's feeling down. And he says to me, cheer me up, Lucy. Tell me how many days it's been.
Oh, how lovely. What a sweet man. Can I call him up?
Of course you can. I think he would talk to anyone at the moment.
Oh, yeah, fair enough.
So bored.
It's funny because I'm from a big drinking family, so that was why I was scared about telling everybody as well, because you feel like you're letting people down in that situation. It sounds ridiculous because, you know, it's alcohol, and we all know that alcohol is bad for you, but yet by giving it up, for some reason you feel like you're letting people down, and that's why it's hard. Yeah, and it was hard for my family at first, but you know, they're very accepting of it now, and they see that I'm happier, and that's really the reason that people support you, is because they see you're happier, you're brighter, your eyes are brighter, and you just look more content. Yeah.
Totally.
So you can't argue with that.
No.
You can't argue with contentment.
No.
Although, as we find out later, people do.
Yes, we're going to go on to that. So, you know, I think we've given a really good feeling, put a really good feeling out there around telling people, because we both had good experiences, even though we were expecting the worst.
Yeah.
Not to say everybody will have good experiences. I mean, it wasn't easy telling people at all. It was desperately hard. But the end result was that people were fine with it. The world didn't fall apart. You know, we were still left to live another day, and a much healthier day.